All right, it looks like it's just one. Welcome everybody to another Tech PD. I'm glad to have you here. It is been nice out, which is wonderful. Finally, spring has started to arrive. Very excited about that. Get back into the swing of things. I'm sure the kids will follow suit as far as the weather goes. So what we're going to talk about today is I was actually, let me do a quick screen share here. I was actually going to the process of naming the last episode. No, I think I mentioned this before. All of these videos, once we've recorded them, all the Tech PD, we archive them. They are all available to you on that Google Classroom, which I can just throw this up here real quickly here, bit.ly/RSU 19 support. And I know everybody's been there because that's how you get here. So if you miss any videos, if you want to go back and recheck any of them, this is always the latest one here. But you can go to Session Video Archive, and this will give you a site that has all the different listed with their definitions and a little description of what's going on and that kind of stuff. So I was going through and getting ready to name last week's one. We talked about Google Drive sharing and so forth. And get ready for this one. And it showed me that we've actually been just about 1 year since we started doing this remote stuff. It was about March, mid-March, when we started doing, I started doing this right here, video Tech PD, as well as, you know, the stuff we did from home and so forth. So, because I was naming it, and actually it was the same name. It was 3/16 or whatever the date was. So it got me thinking, in a year, obviously, crazy changes and unique to unprecedented situation that we've all seen before. But what types of things beyond now will stay? What types of things, if we're talking a year from now, right? So let's say our situation is, improved and we're back to a post-pandemic situation. What are the types of things that will still be with us as far as educationally, kind of technology around education? I like looking back sometimes, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen some of these old pictures. These are from, pictures of what they thought the future would be like. These are old comics. Here I am. There's a projector, I guess, up here with a megaphone of some kind. Here we're, I guess we're skiing on water, I guess, in the future. Here we got a little weird version of Roomba there with a robot with a sweeper and so forth. So this is kind of what they thought it would be like, and it's fun too if you look at what they thought the classroom might be like in the future back then. These were done like in the 60s. Of course, there's computers there, and the kids are all sitting there with a teacher up front. I really like this kid in the corner here. He's got an automated little bonker on the noggin here if he gets something wrong. I don't know if we're going to be allowed to use those, but if you think about the future, and a lot of these type of things are just, they would take what they already knew and just make it bigger, right? So they had trains, so they made bigger trains, or they had flying vehicles, with wings, and so they made bigger ones, bigger versions of them. They wouldn't really, this wasn't like revolutionary, it was evolutionary. The idea where it wasn't a new thing, it was just the same thing they've done before, just in a bigger or better way. And I think about the situation we've been in this last year and kind of how hopefully it will change as we go forward. And kind of, but hopefully by next fall, we're kind of quote unquote back to normal, whatever that means. What things are going to stick with us? Now, sometimes they got it right. There's an example. I don't know if you guys have seen this, like there's a Jetsons episode, and this is actually happening now. My wife is a physician, and she's able to do telemedicine. Before the pandemic, that was just not really allowed. It was an insurance thing, really. But now, since that's become more commonplace and kind of for a while the only way to do it, now going forward, I would be surprised, and I've asked her, and she'd be surprised if this doesn't continue, where the ability to, see a doctor virtually. Now, obviously, they can't do everything, but there's some things that they can do that makes it worthwhile, just as good as if you happen to meet them face to face. I am still waiting for my flying car. This is one of those things that has not come to pass yet, but hopefully that's on its way, if Elon Musk has anything to say about it. So thinking post-pandemic, what types of things will have changed and not go back, and not just in education, but across the board. This is an article that came out a little while ago from a company called Salesforce. Now, Salesforce is a company that works with companies. They're kind of a B2B, business-to-business organization. But so they really see trends. They work with other companies on how they're implementing certain things, or how they're, what their workflow is, or what their workforce does. So this is an article. Salesforce says that the 9-to-5 workday is dead. It will provide 3 new ways for employees to work, including the possibility of working from home forever. And if you look at the article, it's not just Salesforce, it's a lot of companies that basically, if they can work remotely and they're allowing them to, they will. And there would have been a time it would have been like, well, that sounds nice, but in reality, they're probably not going to do that. But here's the thing: if financially, if you don't have to buy a big office building, downtown Seattle or whatever it is, you can have a smaller building, and you can, it's the culture is such that people can work from home or work remotely or whatever. Just financially, I think they're going to. I don't think that's going to be a question. And I don't know if you guys have been, following home prices in Maine, but what's happening is if you can work from anywhere and get paid, say, Boston salaries, of course you want to come to Maine vacation land, right? Like, why wouldn't you want to come live up here and work remotely? Now, what that means to me is, what can we do? What do we need to do to get our students, our kids prepared for that reality? So yes, you can work, locally, work with your hands and so forth, but if you're able to work remotely anywhere, what skill set do you need to have? What, not just, sitting and looking at a screen, but what kinds of things do you need to be proficient with to be able to do so? There's a story, and I thought this is very telling. This happened a couple of years ago. There was a company called Outbox, and this was down in Texas. And it was a couple, entrepreneurs, a couple of startup guys. And the idea was that you would sign up for the service. Your mail would get delivered to this warehouse. All your mail would go, your physical mail would go to like this warehouse somewhere local-ish, and they would sort out, they'd actually send you an email that have all the pictures of all the things that you got, and they would sort out and say, oh, this is junk mail or spam, and this is your actual mail. And they would forward you the mail that you wanted, right? Wouldn't that be great? I don't know about you, but we still get a lot of junk mail, just stuff that we didn't ask for. It comes, basically goes into the recycle bin. We barely even look at it. So that happens a lot. And they thought they were doing a great service for their, the public. Like, hey, we'll have this company, for a minimal fee, we'll be able to do the sorting and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And they actually got pulled in by the U.S. What did they call the Postmaster General at the time? Called them in, and they had a meeting in Washington, and they were all excited. They thought this guy's gonna be like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. Can't wait. And basically, what he told them was, no, you can't do this, because that is what's keeping us afloat. That junk mail that you and I have to deal with as citizens right now is what's keeping the post office, viable, basically, to pay for it. And so something that's a really good idea, I think, and would help the users at the other end, kind of the systems as it's been, the inertia of the old system was keeping it down. And so, for me, the metaphor there is like, what things have we learned this year? Yes, a little bit, not on purpose or not because we really wanted to, but we had to, that we will be able to take with us going forward. The technology itself is something that, as we, it's always going to get smaller, cheaper, faster, et cetera, et cetera. For a long time, the only clock in town was that, central town clock that everybody had to reference, to look at, to the point where then it became a little bit more miniaturized and a little bit cheaper, so everybody could have their grandfather clock in the house. And then, of course, it got smaller again, more personalized, where it's a clock in your wrist, so everybody has their own, to the point where pretty much every room you go into, at most houses, you could say, hey, Siri, or hey, Google, or, hey, Alexa, or whatever. You could just ask for the time. It's kind of, ubiquitous computing, just everywhere you go. Most of our phones have this ability now, where we just talk to it, and it'll tell us the time. Same thing with computers in general, right? Technology, where we, room-sized computers, gets miniaturized to the point where it's on our desk, and then of course it's in our pockets or on our wrists, where we just have computing kind of everywhere we go. It's just there. That reality does change our expectation for our kids. The reality that they will always have some sort of devices, usually at arm's length. We are very fortunate in our district that we were able to do one-to-one machines of some kind, pretty much K through 12. And again, not everybody in the state or the country, of course, has that, but more and more are. if you think about, I don't know about you, but I remember very vividly my math teacher when I was, in grade school telling me, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time. I would be willing to take the bet that every one of us is within arm's reach right now of a calculator of some kind, either a computer or a phone, or our phone, or whatever it is. So what types of things do we need to prepare our students for? This is something that came up the other day. I had a teacher come up to me and say, did you know about this? And I was like, yeah, I did. I didn't know this was kind of still not as well known a thing. I can almost guarantee you your kids know about this, your students know about this. This is an app called PhotoMath. And so what it does is basically, let's just hit play here, is if you point it at a mathematical equation, it will walk through the steps of solving it. So you can put it on top of a textbook or mathematical equation. It will show you through step by step, each step you'd have to do to solve it. Now, to pretend like this doesn't exist in the world, all that means is that your students will be using it on their own without us realizing it's what's actually happening. Am I advocating this as a tool for cheating? Of course not. That's not the point. What the point is that this stuff exists right now, and this will from now on forever. So what do we need to do that we can go beyond what's basically able to be searched? We know that tech is no kind of connection. Like the difficulty that we're having doing this with our students at our home that are either not showing up, or if they do show up, they're not turning their camera on and we can't hear them because they'll disconnect, whatever it is. That's a real problem that we really need to, hopefully we can get them, as much as we can back in the building again eventually, but be able to, we know that this is not a real connection. But the same thing with seat time when they're there and they're just looking at us, and if there's something they can do with, the help of technology, that's not necessarily the answer either. The questions that we need to ask, especially when we start getting people back in the room and the things we need to work with them, are things that Google cannot answer, right? If they can be solvable with a device, what things can we do with them that are beyond that are not just solvable literally with just their phone or their laptop? So a few years back, my son, this is a case, and this was a couple of years ago now. He's older now, but it was a teacher workshop day for him for his school. He goes to China Middle School, but it was not for us. And so we didn't really have a babysitter for him, and he was a little bit too young. I think he was 5th grade there, too young to be kind of on his home alone all day. So I brought him to school. I said, buddy, you come with me to school today. You'll hang out with me. We'll, meet the kids or whatever. And so he was all excited, and he went and dressed all up as if what he thought his dad wears to work. So he put on a fedora. He had a little ID. He grabbed a little toy briefcase. The only thing that concerned me was if you look at what he actually put in the briefcase, we've got money and sunglasses and a deck of cards. I'm not sure exactly what he thinks I do for work. But this is what he brought with him, to spend the day with dad at work at school. But the thing that got me was he asked me at one point, he's like, so Dad, what do you do all day? What do you do? I said, well, I work with students, and I work with teachers, and I integrate technology. We work with, maybe robotics, or maybe coding, or maybe, 3D printing, or whatever, all kinds of cool stuff. And he's like, oh, so you just play all day, basically. And I was like, well, not exactly. I mean, we do things with technology. We create things, we're building things. But for him, he said, well, but you don't do real work. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you don't do worksheets. And so for him, the idea that worksheets meant work. Anything besides that wasn't real school. And so obviously, that concerned me with the work that he was doing at school, because yes, you can do real work that is not worksheet based. And I think we're finding that now, when we talk about those projects, we talk about those, problem-based learning, the stuff that the kids are figuring out. It is difficult to do it through a camera. Of course, absolutely. It's very, very difficult. But as I said, thinking ahead, thinking back to what we will be able to do going forward, we would like to, be able to do some of these things and not just do kind of business as usual, but use the technology that we have at our fingertips now to be able to kind of even make it better than it was before. There's a William Gibson quote, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. You guys have probably seen that before. And so for me, this is a call to action. It's not just a quote, it's cool, but rather than waiting for technology to change the world, we'll see how much we can do with what we have already. So we are lucky that we do have so much available to us now. So what is that we can use that for to really engage and really, motivate those kids that frankly, do not want to be motivated. Yes, it's a difficult thing, but what can we do to hopefully hook them and bring them in and want to be here and want to be part of this? One last thing I'm going to leave you with as far as another tool that, again, is out there. It exists. It's there right now. This one's called Socratic. This is kind of like that photo math one that we just saw that does math, except for this does everything. So this uses Google tools where I can take this is just a word problem here. It will scan the text and it'll walk them through the steps of how we actually answer this problem. So one thing is, again, the genie's out of this bottle. To pretend like this doesn't exist, like, okay, we just don't tell the kids and maybe they won't know. I'm sure they already know, or their big brother does, or big sister does, and they've told them, or whatever. So being able to use that same information to go accomplish something, to go create something, to build, to project, to do something with that information, we've got to be asking them that, because if not, it's just not going to cut it, right? It's just going to be that kind of worksheet level. My thought about this is not, it's just kind of step by step. There's other subject, again, not just math, not just science, but all kinds of different things. For me, the question is no longer what's going to change after this, post-pandemic situation, but really what isn't, right? What isn't going to be different? What isn't going to change? That's now doing a video conference like this. If I had offered Tech PD video like we're doing right now 2 years ago, I don't think I would have had a lot of takers, basically, just because it seemed weird. Like, what do you mean? Well, let's just do it face to face or whatever. That's how we did things. Now things are changed where this is kind of becoming commonplace. I'm hoping going forward that we'll always be able to offer this. For those of you that maybe you can't make it during this time frame, so you can watch it later, or you're in a different part of the building or a different part of the district, you can join. Whatever that is, that makes sense to me. All right, so that was just the kind of thoughts that I had, just as I in a 1 year anniversary, basically, of what we've been doing. I did want to leave with one final other component here. We're gonna have a short one today, but I did want to leave with one other tool that we just received. We're working on getting set up that is going to be available. So this is more for middle schoolers initially, middle school class, 5th through 8th grade. We have it here at the middle school. Once we got to a certain point, I could see us, being able to share with other grades or other classrooms. But initially, this will just be the 5th through 8th grade classes. These are VR headsets, and this is, you put in a phone here or whatever. We actually have a class set now that you would be able to use and sign out. And what would happen is you would do virtual tours with your students. And so let's say we want to go visit the Grand Canyon, or we're going to go visit wherever, Machu Picchu, or wherever it is. What happens is you as a teacher would control where you're going and what you see or what they see, and they would be visiting remotely through this. This app here, the Arts and Culture, so if you go to artsandculture.google.com, this will bring you to some of the places that are available. So here's, for example, here's the Opera House. Let's click on that one. So this is the type of thing that you would be able to give them a tour of, for them to be able to go see. Now, you can absolutely do this now. You don't need to wait for these to be able to have kids kind of explore and look around. The difference is with the headset, is that you as a teacher are kind of the tour guide, meaning like if you send somebody, you're showing them what they're looking at, you're controlling that from that end. Otherwise, you certainly could send any students to this artsandculture.google.com for them to be able to, look around and kind of see, oh, here's the Opera House. One cool thing about this, if you didn't know, the Opera House actually, usually when we see a view that looks like, let me close this out, looks like this, we think of it as one big building. It's actually two. If you look at it straight on, it's actually two separate buildings. There's a greater Opera House and a lesser Opera House, which is just kind of an interesting thing. We don't really normally see that. There's Sydney Harbor. So if you want to check that out, there's all kinds of different places. There's tons and tons and tons of artwork. There's local stuff. Here's weekly highlights, individual people. And you can visit any of these places. If you're doing something for science or for math, maybe you're talking about different mathematical equations and so forth, or perhaps you're actually doing geography, so you want to look around and do it that way too. So these will be available to sign out for 5th through 8th grade teachers initially. Once we get to a certain point, we'll probably be able to offer something else for other grade levels, but starting out, this will be for us. So with that, I know that was a short one today, but I just kind of wanted to chat about what we've been doing for the last year, and hopefully going forward, what we are doing next. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat. So with that, we're going to wrap it up today. We will be picking up next week. Next week, I will have a student presenter as well, and we're going to pick that up as well. One last thing to think about, just to throw this out there to save the date, May 20th, which is a Thursday, they're going to be offering the Milty Student Conference. They've been doing this the last couple of years virtually. Now, we've always in the past, it's just been offered for 7th and 8th grade classes, and you would actually have to go to UMO for the day and all that kind of stuff. This year, they're not doing it face-to-face. Of course, they're doing it virtually, but they're also opening it to more classrooms than just 7th and 8th grade classes. So I believe high school students are invited as well, and I don't know how young they go. I know they certainly do 6th grade, probably 5th grade as well. So for that date, if that's something that you're interested in, they don't have a schedule out yet, but I just want to throw that date out on your radar so that that might be something that we want to include as far as, joining and having kids do different sessions on all kinds of different topics. They usually have, 20 or 30 different presenters doing all kinds of different cool stuff. So we'll just throw that out there. I'll give you more information as we get closer and have more information to share. That was May 20th, the Milty Student Conference. And I think with that, we will wrap it up for the day. Thank you guys all. Have a great week. We will see you again next Wednesday. Take care.